Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Ashafil Anbiya wal Mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Maulana Tazul Islam Sahab for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to convey the message of Allah and His beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us all the tawfiq to act upon what is going to be said, and also He gives us the tawfiq to listen attentively, and more importantly to implement it in our lives, and also more importantly to convey this message to our brothers and sisters who perhaps may not have been able to attend today's lecture. Now, as Maulana Sahab mentioned, today's talk, Fiqh of marriage. Now, this topic, Fiqh of marriage, when we deliver this talk, there may be some brothers who will think to themselves that marriage, I've already done it, and I'm an expert in this field. We know the huquqs, we know the rights. There may be some brothers and sisters who are here who perhaps are thinking of getting married. There may be some who perhaps haven't even thought about marriage. So there may be different levels of brothers and sisters attending today's lecture. But as Maulana Sahab mentioned, that the points which I'm going to mention today will be applicable for everyone. So even those who are young and are thinking of getting married, then this lecture will be beneficial for you. But likewise, those who are already married, this lecture will also be beneficial for you. And similarly, those who perhaps haven't even thought that far to get married. Perhaps you're still in your university, college, still doing your exams or just waiting for results. Perhaps you're still thinking of your next step in your life. You may have finished your university degree, but now you're thinking about getting settled, buying a house. You haven't even thought that far ahead regarding marriage. Even today's lecture will also be beneficial for you as well. Now, when we look around our society, what we notice is there are many problems in our society. Let's take an example of Birmingham, where I am from. I'm sure the problems in Birmingham is also similar to the problems which we as Muslims are suffering here in London as well. The problems in Birmingham are, number one, drug abuse. Many Muslims, many youngsters, 16, 17, are involved in drugs, taking drugs, selling drugs. Another problem which is very common in Birmingham is gang crimes, knife crimes. Many Muslims over the past 12 months have lost their lives, have been stabbed outside schools, have been stabbed outside chip shops, have been stabbed outside restaurants and takeaways, have been stabbed in the park. Muslims, by the way, who are getting stabbed. 16, 17, some younger, some even older. Other problems in our society, we see constant stealing, car stealing going on. People's houses are getting broken into. The women folks, gold being taken, being sold to fund their drug abuse, or to fund the abuse or whatever they're doing in life, to fund that. Also in Birmingham, we also have a big problem regarding alcohol and gambling. Many Muslims are drinking alcohol. Before, they may have been drinking alcohol privately, but now they are doing it openly. And even gambling is a very big issue. Whereas people perhaps may have been gambling privately, now they are doing it openly. But not only are they doing it openly, it's much easier to gamble. Because online, on your phone, you could easily gamble and waste and lose hundreds and thousands of pounds in a blink of an eye. Then on top of that, you have other fitnas, other mischiefs regarding pedophilia, child abuse, and other types of things which obviously there's no need for me to get into in detail here. What we can conclude is that there are many problems which we as the Muslims are suffering in the UK now at this moment in time. If any one of us think that we are all lucky and everything is all rosy for the Muslims living in the UK, then we should really wake up from our slumber and we should actually realize that there are masses of problems which are outside. Then on top of that, you have other fitnas of atheism and people leaving the fold of Islam, which we don't need to go into in today's lecture. Now, there are many reasons why the Muslims are in various problems nowadays. Many reasons. But one of the reasons, one of the asbabs, without doubt, I reckon, is one of the causes, is broken families. Broken families meaning that where a child has grown up in a family where either number one, the father has left them, so left the mother, left the son, left the daughter when they were young. So basically that child has been brought up by the mother. Or broken families can also mean that the child's been brought up where fair enough the father and mother were together, but their relationship was of a toxic relationship where there was physical abuse going on at home. The father, the husband would beat up his wife and the son would see that. The daughter would see all these things. So toxic relationships. Sometimes you could get parents who are married, but then the husband, the father, is hardly at home. Hardly at home. And then the child is being brought up just by the mother. Or if I was to give you some modern day example, being brought up by getting nurtured through YouTube, videos on YouTube, Fortnite, these types of violent games. They're getting brought up through these particular ways. So this is the situation which we have, that our youngsters, our young brothers, our young sisters, they're getting brought up in toxic environments. Why? Either because their parents' marriage have broken down, or number two, their parents are living in such a marriage where the relationship is very bad and very toxic. Abuse is going on. Sometimes the parents in front of their children are taking drugs. Sometimes, in particular in the case of single mothers, their children are growing up when they see many different men are coming into their homes. Those who are old enough will understand what I mean by that. This is the situation of the Muslims nowadays. Now, what do you expect that youngster growing up, seeing that his mother or father are beating each other up? What do you expect that youngster to do? When he grows up, when he hits 12, 13, 14, he'll think violence is acceptable. He'll think that, you know what, my father used to beat my mother up, so what's wrong with violence? Then we'll hear cases of that young brother 14, 15, taking a knife to school and stabbing 2, 3 people. Why? How did that all happen? We as human beings, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ الْفِطْرَةِ, have been created with to have like shafqa and compassion and these things in our life. What made that young boy at the age of 12 and 13 to go to school and stab 2, 3 people? He must have had some inspiration somewhere. Either whether it was through violent video games or whether he used to see his father beating up his mother. There must be some cause somewhere. Because a child at that age can't just go and start killing and stabbing people. There must be some problems. Why is it that a youngster at the age of 12, 13 is trying out drugs? There must be some kind of inspiration somewhere. Could it be that he sees his mother taking drugs? Could it be that he sees his father taking drugs? There must be some reasons. And based on this situation, we get all these crimes which are happening outside. I firmly believe that most of the crimes which are happening, it could be easily alleviated if, say for example, if the couples, if the father and mother are taught basic huquqs and rights regarding marriage. And this is actually a fact that children brought up from broken families are more likely to commit crimes. If you look at most of the cases and you read through their childhood, you'll find that most of them, I won't say every single one, that will be a bit of an exaggeration, but at least 90% of cases, you will find that the child who's actually done the crime has been brought up from broken families. Whether it's like pedophiles, whether it's child abuse, whether it's gang crimes, most of them, obviously you'll get the exception where perhaps the parents were actually good people and they actually did try their best to nurture their child according to the Quran and the Sunnah, but the child went off to a different path. Ye ho sakta hai, this can happen, because at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for every child to be a sa'id or to be a shaqi, to be fortunate or to be wretched. So that's taqdeer, that could happen. But most of the cases, if you were to analyze or read through the case, whether on websites, whether on news outlets, this is what you will find. So this is why I reckon that this topic of fiqh of marriage, huquqs of marriage, I think there needs to be a refresher of that at least once a year for every single one of us. Whether the ones who are thinking of getting married, those who are married and have children, I think you even need a refresher of this as well. Because sometimes as parents, we are very good to kind of like overlook the faults of our children. We sometimes forget about our children. We think, oh, they're going to masjid, they're going to school, their tarbiyah has already been done. Sometimes we think by sending them to the masjid, tarbiyah is automatically done. And we expect that by the time they finish their maktab studies, they should be like Imam Ghazali rahimahullah. Everybody knows that's not possible unless we put the effort in as well regarding the tarbiyah of our children. Yes, are the maktab teachers from 5 to 7, 5 to 7:30, however long they teach for, they can only do a certain level of tarbiyah. Besides that, the rest of the tarbiyah has to come from ourselves. So inshallah, this particular course or lecture, alhamdulillah, it's needed. Due to the time we live in, due to the problems which we are facing, it's something which is, alhamdulillah, very, very important. And obviously we need to thank Mawlana Tazim Saab and also the Masjid Committee as well for giving us the opportunity for me to say a few words. And as I said, if what I say today, if it inspires one person to change his life, or at least it inspires one person to kind of change his perception and just to like work a bit more on the tarbiyah of his children, alhamdulillah, that is such a great blessing. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala was given the flag to conquer the fort of Khaybar, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Sayyidina Ali that if through you one person could be guided, khayrun min humurin na'am, it is better than red camels. In other words, red camels were considered to be very expensive to the Arabs in those days. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that if one person can get hidayat, that's your Jannah. And this is what we need to always achieve. It's not always about numbers. It's always about just guiding one individual. If one individual is guided, subhanallah, ajru man amila biha, I'll get reward, Mulana Tazul Sahib will get reward, the masjid committee will get reward, everyone will get reward. So inshallah, this should always be our fikr and our kind of desire and passion that at least one person, alhamdulillah, is guided. Then that is very, very important. Now, before we mention a few points regarding the fiqh of marriage, I said it's not going to be a very, very detailed one because of lack of time. But I'll mention some of the main points. So the first thing which I want to mention is that marriage is actually a sunnah of all the prophets, alayhi salatu wasalam. There is a hadith which can be found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Arba'un min sunanil mursalin." 4 things are from the sunnah of the prophets, and one of them is an-nikah. All the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam all the way until Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, married. Only 2 prophets who didn't marry. They were the Prophet Yahya alayhi salatu wasalam, who devoted his life for the service of Masjid al-Aqsa, for Baytul Maqdis. And the other prophet who didn't get married was Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. But it's mentioned in Mishkat al-Masabih that Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, before the end of time, he will descend. That's one of our beliefs. Before the end of time, he will descend. He will kill the Dajjal, and he will get married. And he will have 2 children. And he will live for 40 years, and then he will pass away naturally, and he will be buried in the Rawza Athar along with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So from this we can understand all the prophets will marry, will keep this sunnah alive, besides Yahya alayhi salatu wasalam. But besides him, every single one of them, not only did they marry, but they also married many times. Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam had 99 wives. Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam had 100 wives. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got married in total 13 times. So these were the prophets who married abundantly through their lives, to indicate that this is actually a sunnah. Even subhanallah, Adam alayhi salatu wasalam in Jannah, when he was created and he was in Jannah, what happened? He felt alone. He felt lonely. In Jannah, he felt lonely. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from his rib, created Sayyida Hawwa radiyallahu anha. And that in itself, and this is a very key point, I want everyone to, in particular, perhaps the youngsters who aren't married and perhaps they don't want to get married, this should be a reminder, because we have many brothers, even many sisters as well, who don't want to get married anymore. To a certain extent, I can't blame them, because when they look at marriage, they think, oh, do you know why it ends up in divorce, or do you know why, so much stress, so much problems, in-laws and this, that, brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, mother-in-laws, father-in-laws. So some of the younger brothers and sisters may think, do you know what, marriage is not really for us. But let me just remind you that you can have the best job, you can have so much money coming in, but unless you have a soulmate, or you have someone who you can spend that time with you, then all the materialistic things which you may have, will be of no use or no benefit whatsoever. Because I think a lot of the brothers and sisters, they have this mentality that, oh, do you know what, I'm just going to work all my life, I'll buy my house, I'll live in that house by myself, I'll have no worries, I'll have no stress, no pressure, I could do whatever I want, I could go out whatever I want. No. A time will come when you realize that money can't buy everything. When you're young, you think money can buy everything. But when you get a bit older, when you're a bit more wiser, a bit more smarter, you realize money can't buy everything. And what money can't buy is happiness, sukoon, tranquility. There's so many millionaires out there. Ask many of these millionaires, billionaires, are they happy with their life? And I won't be surprised, a good portion of them will say no. But you got the latest car, you got your fancy mansion, you got the latest phone, you got the latest watches. Why aren't you still happy? Because tranquility and sukoon, it comes from Allah. And that is something which money can never ever buy. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, when He describes marriage, and He says, Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahum. Wa antum libasul lahum. That He describes marriage to be like a libas, like clothing. The same way when you wear clothes and you feel comfortable with what you're wearing, likewise, when you are married, you feel comfortable, you feel happy. So even Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was in Jannah, and remember brothers and sisters, we're talking about Jannah here, we're not talking about a worldly, dunyawi, materialistic thing where you've got your mansion and you've just got a few personal items and you think, oh, do you know what, that is my Jannah. No, we're talking about the actual Jannah, where, as mentioned in the hadith, that the lowest person in Jannah will get a place which is equivalent to 10 times the size of this world. So Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was in Jannah, he felt lonely. He could do whatever he wanted in Jannah, but yet he still felt lonely. So from this we can understand that even those brothers and sisters who are thinking, I don't want to get married and I just want to spend my entire life by myself, believe me, when you reach a certain age, you will get lonely. Even though you'll have your phones and you'll have all the latest gears and the latest laptops and the latest cars and the fancy mansion, even then you'll feel lonely. What you'll actually want is you'll want someone to spend all that worldly benefit with you. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us. But the sad thing is that when those brothers and sisters realize later on in their life, as they say, they miss the bus. I've seen this with a lot of brothers and sisters. They don't want to get married. So when they were in their early 20s, late 20s, they had so many proposals. No, I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. Then the 30s, they get into their 30s. Proposals still coming, but a bit more less. No, I don't want to get married. I don't want to get married. And then, as they say, they miss the bus. It's too late. Then they reach 40, they reach 45. Then they decide, oh, do you know what, I want to get married now. But it's too late. Obviously, they can get married. I'm not saying they can't. But then we hear cases that they'll get married, they'll meet someone on Facebook, they'll meet someone on these internet dating sites, who obviously these dating sites are a bit, as I say, could be like a scam, could be a bit dodgy, where the groom is saying I'm 45 years old like you, but he ends up being 70 or 80, and he puts a fake picture of himself. And sometimes you call them, I think there's a word, you call them catfish, I think that's what it's called, catfish. Where basically, sometimes these people online or on Facebook, they actually would get married to you on the basis that they're going to scam you of money. So they'll make things up that, oh yeah, like I live in this country and I need £10,000 from you to get a visa to come and live with you in the UK. And then what happens? They scam them of money, £10,000, £15,000, and then they run away. And these sisters are then left at the age of 45 without anyone, and they also lose 15,000, 10,000 pounds from their personal savings as well. By the way, these are true stories, okay? You just need to go onto the internet and find these stories. And this is what happens when certain brothers and sisters, they leave it late to get married, and then desperately, when they reach a certain age, because at the age of 40, 45, remember, you're not going to be getting that many proposals. So at that age, they're desperately looking for anyone to get married to. Yeah, and some are even so desperate, they'll just get married to even anyone, whether that person is even a proper Muslim or not, that's another issue. Whether he's a Sunni, whether she's a Shia, whatever, they don't care. They'll just get married to anyone. They'll get married to atheists, they'll get married to all these types of people. And then they later realize, oh, he's an atheist, or he's a Shia, or she's a Shia, or she's this, she's that. So this is why it's important that I'll say this to the younger brothers and sisters who are here in the audience, that, think about marriage. I know, yes, at this moment in time, you may have some bad experiences, even those who are perhaps previously married as well. You may be thinking, I don't want to get married again. Alhamdulillah, it's a sunnah. Sometimes it happens that divorces occur. Many of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wives were, as I'm sure all of you know, divorces. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a divorcee. I'm not sure whether you know that. One of his wife, known as Imra'atul Jawniya, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to divorce her. So even Prophet ﷺ, looking at it from that perspective, he was a divorcee as well. So sometimes we may have divorcee brothers and sisters who think, I don't want to get married again. But alhamdulillah, sometimes we should always realize that we should never allow one bad experience to kind of forget this particular sunnah, forego on this particular sunnah. This is all part and parcel of life. People get tested in different ways. Some will get tested through divorce, some get tested through sickness and illnesses, some get tested through bereavement. These are just part and parcel, masa'ib, musibah. These things are all part and parcel of life. So inshallah, we should not let one bad experience, inshallah, let go of this particular sunnah which was practiced by all the prophets and the messengers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, before I move forward, I'll just mention a few hadiths regarding the virtues of marriage. There is one hadith which can be found in Sunan al-Bayhaqi, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that when a man marries, he has fulfilled half of his religion. So let him fear Allah regarding the remaining half. So when a man marries, he's fulfilled half of his religion. He should now fear Allah regarding the remaining half. How does that happen? When somebody marries, I've noticed this as well, there's a lot of barakah in that marriage. And in particular, when he marries a sister, or even vice versa, a sister marries someone who's pious, then their spouse has a positive impact on them and they become religious. I know many sisters who weren't wearing niqab. But as soon as they got married, because their husband perhaps is religious, he may be an alim, he may even be a tablighi sati, who's a bit more deendar. So because of that reason, the sister becomes a bit more practicing. She starts wearing niqab. Not only that, she then gets inspired that, because my husband's an alim, or my husband at least deendar, do you know what, I want to learn about deen. So I want to now become an alima. So she then, alhamdulillah, spends 5 years, 6 years, becomes an alima. Alhamdulillah, they have children. Then she inspires her children to be alims, alimas, hafizas. And then alhamdulillah, you then see the entire khandan, the entire family being alims and alimas. But if you were to go back to her roots, perhaps before she got married, she wasn't even practicing. She probably never used to wear hijab. Forget about niqab, she never used to wear hijab. But then sometimes it happens that when you marry someone pious, then they have a positive impact. And I've also seen this with brothers as well. Sometimes some brothers who weren't practicing, then they marry a alima, or they marry, say, a pious sister. And then after a while, you see them, mashallah, they start coming to the masjid. When they initially come, there's no beard, there's no hair shaved. Then slowly you see them that after a while, a bit of hair grows on their face, and then they get a bit more pious. Then mashallah, they go for 3 days, 40 days, 1 year. They go for chillas regularly. Alhamdulillah, that's because of the encouragement they get from home, from their wives and from their women folk. So this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when you marry, you complete half of your iman. Now you just have to fear Allah for the remaining half. Again, the examples which I gave, it's not for all brothers and sisters, because you may say, well, Mufti Sahib, I know a lot of brothers, they got married, they got actually even more worse. And I know a lot of sisters who got married, they actually got even more worse. So that could happen as well, because as I said before, look, at the end of the day, Allah is the one who chooses whether that person is Sa'id and Shaqi. So it could be the case that, you could use the same argument as well, that there's a lot of brothers and sisters, they go to madrasas, and when they graduate, they actually end up graduating worse than when they actually started. And some of the parents say that, well, my son and daughter, before they went to madrasa, were actually more better. But when they kind of leave, they come out more worse. Why does that happen? So that's because at the end of the day, Allah is Sa'id, Shaqi. He decides, He chooses what He wants for His servants. There could be other reasons as well. If I was to elaborate on the topic slightly, there could be other reasons. And that is that sometimes, when you do something for bad reasons, for bad intentions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always kind of will not, when you start something, let me repeat that again. This is a hadith of Tirmidhi and Abu Dawud, that when you start something with bad intentions, then what happens is that you can never be the same again. The hadith in question is actually a hadith regarding those brothers who go for religious wars. So the hadith in Tirmidhi Abu Dawud says that if they went with good intentions, inshallah they'll get rewarded. But if they went with bad intention, lam yarji' bil kafaf, which means that they can never return back the same. And I use this hadith even for everything else in life. So even if you get married, if your intention was bad reasons from the very beginning, lam yarji' bil kafaf, which means that you can never be the same. Which means that before you actually married, you were perhaps better off. But because you married for wrong intentions, when you actually end the marriage, or just say the marriage when it terminates, whether through the death of the spouse, or whether through you decide to leave, or talaq or divorce happens, then that person you'll see will be actually even more worse off than when they got married. And we see many sisters, many brothers who just get married. I'll give you one example. Like they get married for worldly reasons, for many reasons. So before they got married, they were actually good people. But when they got married, because their intention was just pure for money, or purely for visa to come from Pakistan, Bangladesh to the UK, when they actually get the visa and then they leave their wives, or the wives leave their husbands, they actually are more worse off spiritually than when they were before. And so many examples of brothers and sisters who I know, when they were in Pakistan, Bangladesh, they were actually alimas, alims, very pious people. But then because when they got married, their intention unfortunately then became for the visa, became for the passport. So when they got that, then they kind of went against their husband or their wife or their spouse, and now you see them, their thoughts and their vision of life is actually more advanced and more modern than someone living in this country. Because Allah says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Lam yarji' bil kafaf." When you do something religious but for bad reason, you can't never be the same. The mental problems you suffer and experience, you never ever be the same again. And this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and we see that all what Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said and 1400 years ago, we kind of see that, alhamdulillah, with our own eyes in this society. Thing is, we don't study the deen properly. That's why we don't know these things which we are suffering, the Muslims are suffering. This is what Prophet ﷺ told us. So alhamdulillah, this is one kind of virtue of getting married. Then there's another hadith where it talks about a pious wife and a fazila and a virtue regarding a pious wife. Rasulullah ﷺ has said, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants a Muslim a righteous wife who helps him preserve half of his deen, he should therefore fear Allah as regards the other half. Which means that if Allah grants a righteous wife, a pious wife to someone, then that person has already fulfilled half of his deen. And there are also many similar hadiths like that with regards to the pious wife getting married. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses that as a means for a person to be religious and for a person to attain taqwa and be God-fearing. Now moving on to the next topic. The next question to ask, or the next question to pose is, what qualities should we look into? So this is for both. For a brother who wants to get married, or for a sister who wants to get married. What qualities should we look in our future spouse? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned a beautiful hadith. This can be found in Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, that tunkahul mar'atu li arba'i, that a woman is married for 4 reasons. Limaliha, for her wealth, wali hasabiha, for her rank, wali jamaliha, and for her beauty, and lastly wali diniha, and for her piety. Fadfar bidhati din taribat yadak. Now the main condition which we need to look at when it comes to marriage, what kind of spouse we want to get married to, is someone who is pious, someone who is religious, someone who is God-fearing. This is what we need to look at. Yes, beauty is important, but it should not be the main reason why you're getting married to someone. Because I'm sure everybody knows, beauty is temporary. Yes, that sister who you're getting married to may seem to you the most beautiful person at this moment in time. But let 15 years pass, 20 years pass, she's not going to be beautiful anymore. So what you need to look at when it comes to marriage is deen, piety, taqwa, being God-fearing. Because these qualities are such that they will always stay with a person. They are permanent qualities. Beauty, wealth, these things, they are just temporary. It's going to stay for a bit and then afterwards it will disappear. So always look at, brothers and sisters, when it comes to marriage, always look at deen. Always look at piety. There's a very famous hadith. I just want to say a few things about why good qualities are so important. So there's a very famous hadith which can be found in Riyadh Salihin, also in Sahih Muslim as well, which I quoted to the students a few days back, that there was a non-Muslim who converted to Islam, and he said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, O Prophet of Allah, when I was a non-Muslim, I used to give charity, I used to free slaves, I used to do other good righteous acts. Would I get reward for that? Remember, he's converted to Islam, but whilst he was a non-Muslim, and even nowadays as well, alhamdulillah, when we see non-Muslims, not all of them are bad. Many of them donate millions to cancer research and all these things. These are all good things, because all this cancer research, we also as Muslims are benefiting from it as well. I'm sure many of our brothers, sisters who had suffered from cancer, and alhamdulillah they've been cured. If it wasn't for the millions of pounds which, to tell you, a lot of non-Muslims donate for cancer research, it kind of stopped the cancer at a very, very early stage. So alhamdulillah, not all non-Muslims are bad. We should always remember that. Some of them do a lot of good work for the community. So as I was saying, that this non-Muslim person, he was saying that when I was a non-Muslim, I gave charity, I did this, I did that. So would I get reward for it? As I've now converted to Islam, would I get reward for it? And Rasulullah ﷺ said these words. He said that you have converted to Islam upon those good qualities which you used to do before. You have converted to Islam because of the good qualities you possessed before, meaning the good things you did before. In other words, donating, giving charity, looking after the vulnerable, looking after the poor, feeding the poor. Because of the barakah of those good qualities before, Allah gave you the tawfiq to come onto this particular path. And this is the exact same thing I said to our students as well a few days back. And I said that, look, alhamdulillah, many of you, before you joined the madrasa and the institution, as Mawlana Tazul Islam Sahib said a few things about it, many of you perhaps may have been doing some good things. Like you may have possessed some good qualities. Like I gave an example that sometimes some of the brothers who have joined our Alim class, even though they used to study in college, universities and other places, but alhamdulillah, whilst they were in that environment, they never ever had a girlfriend. They never ever had a boyfriend. They never listened to music. They never listened to this. They didn't do that. They didn't go to nightclubs. They didn't visit places where they shouldn't have. And I say to those brothers that alhamdulillah, you know what? Bearing in mind you were in an environment where having a girlfriend or for a sister to have a boyfriend was very, very easy, but you didn't. That is a good quality Allah possessed in you. And because of that good quality and the barakah, you now, alhamdulillah, Allah has now put you on the path of ilm, and you are now studying to become an alim, and sisters are now studying to become alimas. Alhamdulillah, that is because of the good quality you possessed. And this is the exact same thing which I want to say about when it comes to choosing a spouse. Always look at good qualities. So even though now, like if you look at your wife now, you look at a future spouse now, a sister's come, a proposal has come. Now you may think to her, oh, you know what, she's not praying 5 times a day at this moment in time. Or she may be this, she may be that. But by speaking to her, you notice that alhamdulillah, her mannerism, her akhlaq, her qualities, her awsafs are so amazing. This is what you need to look at. Because with good qualities, subhanAllah, eventually, one day, they will always come onto the straight path. What you should be fearing is that a proposal comes and the sister or the brother or the family are arrogant. That you should be scared in that situation to whether to get married or not. But if somebody's got good qualities, good awsaf, good characteristics, alhamdulillah, they're very nice, they're very gentle, they're very tender, then these are amazing qualities. We should always stick to these qualities. We should always, when we have such proposal, we should straight away accept it. Yes, they may not be 100% practicing, but to tell the truth, we live in a time where who is actually 100% practicing? May Allah forbid, even the imams, even the ulamas, the muftis, even myself, I won't say I'm 100% practicing. Who is actually 100% practicing? Very few. So sometimes we ourselves as brothers and sisters, we're not even practicing, but we expect our spouses to be like a saint, which is not going to be possible always. So sometimes we need to be practical and reasonable in our demands, because I've noticed this as well with brothers and sisters, that they themselves are not always practicing, but they want their spouse who they're getting married to, they want them to be proper practicing. But that's very unfair, isn't it? You yourself are not praying 5 times. How can you expect your wife to pray 5 times? you as the sister, she perhaps doesn't wear hijab, but she wants the spouse to be someone very pious and to be an alim and to be a mufti. That's not always going to be the case. You need to be practical and reasonable when it comes to choosing a spouse. So this is one of the key things which I want to mention. Good qualities. Always look at good qualities. And also we live in a time now where Aqidah is also very important as well. We need to also substantiate that as well. So it's not good qualities. We also need to look at a person's Aqidah. Just because they are Muslims, just because they look Muslims, in terms of they have a Muslim name, Ahmed, Abdullah, Abu Bakr, or just because they have a beard, or just because a sister's wearing hijab, doesn't necessarily mean they are automatically practicing. And also doesn't necessarily mean that their Aqidah is automatically according to the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So it's also very, very important that we kind of substantiate that the brother or the sister who we're getting married to, their Aqidah is correct. Yeah, so also look at that as well. Like especially nowadays with a lot of radicalized groups and extreme groups, you just have to be careful that they're not really mixing with certain groups which their beliefs are very, very questionable. So this is very, very important as well. So making sure that the characteristics, the Aqidah of the spouses who we are choosing is also very, very important as well. And one of the key elements to look at when it comes to choosing a spouse is something known as kafa, kuf in Arabic. And kafa and kuf basically means that the sister who you're marrying or the sister who's marrying that brother, they have to be on the same wavelength. Wavelength meaning like their interests has to be similar. Their thoughts have to be similar. As I'm sure all of you know that when you have two opposites, it's very difficult to kind of live with that person. Isn't it? Like you're going to constantly be bickering. Just imagine that you thinking in a different way and the sister you're marrying thinks in a totally different way. There's always going to be problems, there's always going to be arguments, there's always going to be disputes. You'll want it in a certain way, she'll want it in a different way. So there's always going to be problems. And then as I said before, these then transcends into the children and then they don't really have a nice upbringing at home. So always make sure that the person who you're marrying have similar thoughts as you. Again, just some examples I could give you. Again, this is not necessary, but just say like, if there is an alim, then perhaps it makes sense for him to marry an alima. I'm not saying he has to marry an alima, I'm just saying it makes sense because your upbringing is going to be very similar to the sister's upbringing. Yes, someone who's a doctor, then perhaps it makes sense that you marry someone who's like you, whether she's a doctor, whether she's a lawyer, whether she's a solicitor, because your mentality is going to be different, isn't it? Because obviously you've studied at university, you've stayed back, you've become a doctor. So it makes sense that the spouse you're marrying should also have a similar kind of background to you as well. Nothing wrong with being a doctor or a lawyer or a solicitor. I'm not saying that's not allowed. I'm saying the wife or the spouse you're marrying should also be of that particular background as well. Because kuf is important. Kafara is important. And you'll see that one of the main reasons why marriage breaks down, or marriages break down, is because of lack of kafara. And we could even raise this question or issue here as well, about marrying someone from Pakistan, marrying someone from Bangladesh. Perhaps 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it may be a bit more, it may have been okay to marry someone from there. But sometimes, again, not always, but then sometimes, especially nowadays, I've noticed that it could lead to problems as well in marriage. Especially if the girl is from this country and the husband who comes, then his mentality may be different. He's still thinking of, no, we want to have children and then we're going to take them to Bangladesh and we're going to live there for happily ever after. We know that's not even possible nowadays. Sometimes in terms of, I've noticed with ambition, they're different as well. Whereas with our children, being brought up this country, we tend to be ambitious, don't we? We are ambitious and we want our children to be like a doctor and a lawyer and a solicitor, or from a religious side, we want them to be hafiz, alim, mufti, qari, which is good. Being ambitious is good, and making your children toe that line, that they need to push themselves and be the best at what is available, that's something good as well. But sometimes notice that when the husband or the wife is from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, their mentality is different. They think, no, we don't want him to be a hafiz. He should leave school at 16 and go and work in a restaurant, go and work in a takeaway, and earn money and give the money back to his grandparents in Bangladesh and Pakistan. So these things can sometimes lead towards problems in marriage. So this is why it's important that similar wavelength, kuf, we call it in Arabic, is also important when it comes to, alhamdulillah, the marriage as well. So these are a couple of points to mention. Obviously, choosing the right person, the right spouse is important. Also at the same time, another sunnah which is very, very important is regarding what we call nazr makhtuba, i.e. looking at the sister, or even the sister looking at the brother before marriage. This is actually a sunnah, by the way. It's in the hadith of Tirmidhi, Mishkat, that you should look at the woman or the spouse before you decide to marry. The reason why I'm saying it, that it's a sunnah, and I've also said as well, a forgotten sunnah, because I know in some khandans or some families, they think that you shouldn't look at the person who you marry. So you should just rely on what the mother has said. So what will happen is that everybody else in the whole world can go and see the girl, but you can't see the girl. So basically, your own sister will see her, your own mother will see her, your auntie will see her, your uncles and everybody else will see her, but then you can't see her. So that is really backward thinking. So it's actually a sunnah that you see the sister before you get married. Yeah, this actually creates love. Also, things like beauty is important as well. I did say the overriding quality should be the wali diniha, and her attributes and her gentleness and her tenderness. But beauty is also important as well. So obviously, if you're getting married to someone who perhaps you don't find attractive, then it could lead towards problems later. So it's important that you see her, because sometimes I've noticed this as well, that people exaggerate in descriptions. Yeah, always keep that in mind as well. So if you were to say, okay, I'm just going to rely on what my mother has said about this sister. So sometimes parents, they also exaggerate as well and say, oh yeah, she's so beautiful and she's so like this, she's so like that. Then when you see her after the nikah and the aqd is done, and you think, mother, she's nothing like what you told me, it could lead towards problems. So it's important that you kind of see her yourself, and alhamdulillah, if she's attractive, then you see that will also help you in the marriage as well, inshallah. So things like that is also very, very important. Now this takes me on to one or two more things to add on here, or three things to tell the truth. Number one is the role of a guardian in a marriage. The role of a guardian, or this term you may have heard of called wali. So what is the role of the wali or the guardian when it comes to marriage? Now, without going into too much detail, the wali or the guardian of a sister is her father. If he's not alive, then the grandfather. If he's not alive, then the brothers. And if she doesn't have any brothers, then her uncles. They tend to be her guardian and her wali. Now, according to Imam Abu Hanifa rahimullah, it's considered to be a sunnah, like mustahab, not necessarily mustahab, that a sister, she should get permission from a wali before she goes ahead and gets married. Whereas the other imams, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmed, they say that it's a condition, it's necessary that she has a wali, she gets permission from the wali and the guardian, only he can conduct her marriage. As mentioned in the hadith of Tirmidhi, La nikaha illa bi waliyin. Now the problem which we have in this day and age is, especially for Hanafis, people from India, subcontinent, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, these places, where we see many sisters are going ahead and getting married without informing their parents. So what does the Sharia say regarding that? Now obviously looking at it from a fatwa perspective, because there's different ways, looking at it from a fatwa, legality, then there's nothing wrong. The nikah would be done. Because in the Hanafi fiqh we say that it's sunnah, it's mustahab that she takes consent from her wali. But if that sister is someone who is sane, aqil, baliga, mature, then hurra, free, she could conduct her own marriage herself. So in terms of legality, the nikah will be done. In terms of what she did, would it be considered to be appropriate or not? So the answer is no. So in terms of fatwa, the nikah will be done. But in terms of taqwa, then perhaps what she did isn't right. Because obviously when it comes to marriage, it's important for sisters, also for brothers as well. Let's not ignore the brothers. Sometimes, many brothers get married without telling their parents. Nikah will be done, the aqd will be done, but it's not good. And the reason why it's not good, even though legally it'll be done, fatwa said will be done. The reason why it's not good is because I've noticed that sometimes when it comes to marriage, you need to have the du'as of your parents. You need to have the du'as of your parents. Sometimes we see with young brothers and sisters when they just leave home, they get married, because their parents are not happy with what they did. Even though there may be nothing wrong with the sister, even though she may be a good sister, even though she may be practicing, but because the parents aren't entirely happy, you get this situation where, as mentioned in the hadith, Rida Rabbi fi Rida Walidi, wa Sakhatu Rabbi fi Sakhatil Walidi. In other words, the happiness of the parents, the happiness of Allah, Rida Rabbi, the happiness of Allah is in the happiness of the parents. And the displeasure of Allah is in the displeasure of the parents. Meaning, if you make your parents happy, Allah will be happy. If you make your parents sad and angry, Allah will be angry. So I've noticed this that where many brothers and sisters, they go ahead without parents' consent. Such marriages don't really last too long. And even if it does last, it's not entirely a happy marriage. Because parents are upset with what they've done, and because of that reason, you'll see that the barakah isn't there anymore. It's not, the full barakah isn't there. And especially when we want to get married, it's important that the barakah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there to keep the marriage and nikah intact. So that's why I'll always say that it's important for younger brothers and sisters, they get the consent from their elders, from their parents, before they go ahead and get married. Yet at the same time, I think it's also important as well, this needs to be clarified, that unfortunately in some families or in some areas or in some parts of the world, even some parts of the UK, parents are sometimes very, very unreasonable. Where in that situation, we can't then really blame our younger brothers and sisters if they went ahead and got married secretly. What I mean by that unreasonable is, say for example, your son may come and they've approached their father and said, look, I found someone, a sister, same age as me, similar, practicing, alhamdulillah, she's good. Okay, she's good. Alright, just imagine, I know, even though it's not an issue, but she's the same culture as me. Remember, culture is not an issue, but it's not an issue meaning from a Sharia perspective. But I know with some parents, they want their daughter-in-law to be Bengali, or if they're Pakistani, they want their daughter-in-law to be Pakistani. So look, your sons come to you, and he's even said, look, even a girl who I found, she's also Bengali as well. She's also Pakistani as well. She's also a Chachi as well. She's also a Pathan as well. All these things were mentioned, made clear. But yet parents are still unreasonable, saying, no, we're not going to agree. Like, she's practicing, she's a Muslimah, she's the same culture, even though culture isn't a condition, but he's even said, look, I've even got someone from our same khandan, from our same culture, yet some parents are unreasonable, say, no, we don't want to allow that marriage. Knowing to right, and this is the problem which really gets me upset, is some parents know that their son has a girlfriend. Some parents know that their daughter has a boyfriend. Some parents even know they are committing zina. You know that some parents, this is how unfortunately bare-ghairat they are. They know their daughters are committing zina. They know their sons are committing zina with their girlfriends, with their boyfriend. They know that. But just merely on the basis that this sister is not from the same, like she may be Bengali, but she's not from the same caste as them. Just based on that, they won't agree with the marriage. But they know too right that their son and their sister, they're committing zina regularly. But just based on that, they won't give their blessings on the marriage. If in that situation, if the brother and sister were to go ahead and were to get married without the entire blessing of their parents, then that would be correct from a fatwa perspective and also from a taqwa perspective. Because how can you allow two people committing zina, but you're not agreeing to the marriage because she's from a different clan? How can you allow that? In that way, fatwa and taqwa both will say, if they go ahead and get married, it will be allowed. So in normal circumstances, yes, you should get permission from your parents, both brothers and sisters. But where, say for example, their brother and sister, they are kind of like together, they've been dating. Look, I'm not saying all these things are allowed, but let's be a bit practical about the situation. And again, who are we going to blame for the dating? Okay, let's look at the roots here. Who are we going to blame? Sometimes the parents have to take the blame. Why did you send? If you think that, the universities, college, these places are places of fitness, you should have sent them there. So we sent them in that mahol, in that environment. Yep. Now, what I'm trying to say is that we can't blame always our children afterwards if they say, oh, look, father, I've got a girlfriend, I want to marry her. When we put them into that mahol, obviously some of you brothers may be thinking, well, what's the alternative? Look, we can't send our children out for university, these things, but we just have to be a bit on top of the board, on top of the game. We just have to realize, okay, who are they contact with? Some parents, they are so oblivious, as I said before, that they give everything to their children, their sons, their daughters. They're on Facebook, they're on everything, Instagram, everything. They go to uni, they don't check on them. They come home by themselves. They're supposed to come at 6 o'clock in the evening. They come at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We don't know where they are. They don't even ask where they are. And then a couple of years down the line, when they say, oh, I want to get married to this brother or sister, then everybody has a panic attack. So no, we're not going to allow it. Knowing to right they are committing zina, knowing to right they're in an adulterous relationship. So what I want to say, in that situation, if the boy or the girl were to get married without seeking consent, proper consent from their parents, then fatwa and even taqwa, it will be correct. Why? Because would you rather do zina, which is a grave sin, by the way, wala taqrabu zina, it's a grave sin. Would you rather do that? As mentioned in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari, when Prophet ﷺ was in a dream, and in this dream he was taken by Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam and Mikael alayhi salatu wasalam, and he saw various punishments happening in hell. He saw someone who had a metal hook and he was cutting his cheeks all the way up to the back of his head. He asked Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, why was this person punished in this way? It's because he used to backbite and do ghibat. And his backbiting and ghibat spread to the entire world. As it happens nowadays with WhatsApp, you just spread a few rumors on WhatsApp, forward it to all your contacts. Your contacts would be in America, Australia, New Zealand, and they're able to hear those lies and those accusations and those buhtan. And then there was, Prophet ﷺ saw a pot where underneath there was a fire. And inside this pot were naked men and women. And the same way when you boil an electric kettle, and when it reaches its end and its crescendo and the flap or the lid of the kettle starts going up, down, up, down. Likewise, this kettle, it had a lid, and the lid was moving upwards, and whilst it was moving up, all the naked men and women were also ascending upwards, and then when the lid went down, all the naked men and women were also going down into the pot. So Prophet ﷺ asked Jibreel, why? What's happening here? And Jibreel said, these men and women were the zunats. Zunat means were the fornicators. So I was saying fornication, zina, adultery is a very grave sin. So if we know our daughters, our sons are committing zina, they are in a relationship, okay, fair enough, they may not be in a fornicating relationship as of yet, but we know they have a girlfriend, we know they have a boyfriend. You know, when that happens, there could be a chance of zina. As mentioned in a hadith that لا يخلون رجل بامرأة إلا ومعها ثالثها الشيطان أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, that when a man and a woman are alone together, who's the third person there? Shaitan, who will cause fitna and these things. So when we know that our son has a girlfriend, and we know, okay, perhaps they may not be doing zina as of yet, but there's a chance that they could be doing zina, we should think about legalizing that union and that marriage, and the way to do that is through nikah. Very simple, which I will explain later very briefly. You know, nikah is very easy. Ijab and kabul. You know, you don't even need an imam's khutbah. Sunnat is just the often acceptance and the mentioning of the dowry. Even the dowry doesn't have to be mentioned, just the often acceptance. And then afterwards, the nikah is done. You don't even need a wali in that situation, according to Imam Abu Hanifa. So alhamdulillah, that was the first thing to mention. Number two, the second point I wanted to mention here was about arranged marriages. So arranged marriages is also very, very important as well. I think this is a responsibility of parents, which I've noticed over the past few years, illa mashallah, but the last few years, many of the younger parents, they're beginning to forget about it. They don't even take it as a responsibility. Arranged marriages is where you look for someone for your son or for your daughter. You look for someone. And this arranged marriage is actually a parental responsibility. So it's a zimmedari of your parents to actually find someone for your son and daughter. For their son and daughter. As mentioned in the hadith of Mishkah, that when your son, daughter reaches the age of puberty and you did not find someone for them, then the sin will be upon the parents if they were to commit zina. So this is like a parental responsibility. As I was saying, that I've noticed that many of our parents, I'm not sure why that is the case, but perhaps the zamana or the culture or the environment we live in, because now the environment we live in is that, oh, you look for your own spouse, you pay for your own wedding, you pay for your own things. We as parents not going to do anything. You know, we paid for your tuition fees at universities. You know, we've done this, we've done that. But when it comes to marriage, we just totally leave them to it. That's why we have issues of them marrying people who are not really suited for them. So it's a parental responsibility. Very, very important that we find someone. Obviously, we can't force them to marry someone according to our own choice, but we could just offer that to them, and then at the end, it's their responsibility. And if parents, and I'll also say this as well, because I know there's a lot of ulamas here as well, that remember, if the parents, because remember, not all parents, unfortunately, take this seriously. So if parents are not taking it seriously, then remember the ustads, the teachers, the asatizas, they are like your spiritual fathers, aren't they? So we as ustads should also at least nominate or at least choose or think of someone. Because remember, do you know your students who are studying with you? You probably know them perhaps more better than the father knows his son. Because remember, that student who studies in a madrasa for 6 years, 8 years, even longer, you probably know that student more better than his own father. That's why ustads are like your spiritual father in a way. So if they know that student's temperament, that student's quality, and they also know a sister who also matches in those qualities, then they should at least, this is also considered to be arranged marriage as well, they should at least nominate, okay, look brother, I know this sister, and then at the end of the day, it's up to them whether they want to get married. But at least you should choose someone or nominate someone, and then it's up to them. Likewise, the same way the parents, they should do this responsibility. I personally think there's no haraj in if a ustad or someone like a sheikh or a bir sahib or someone from a buzrug or a akabir was to choose for their disciples someone without forcing. The key thing is not to force. I think that's where the issue is. Not to force them, because you know that disciple or your student more than perhaps a lot of others will know. If you find someone who matches their characteristics and qualities, then choosing someone is also very good. So arranged marriage is actually a very, very good responsibility. As I said, it's very important. It's a parental responsibility. As I said, as parents, we're kind of giving up on that nowadays. We don't take that seriously. So we should kind of take it seriously. But remember, brothers and sisters, that you can't force them. Because if you force, then it becomes forced marriages. And this is also a very, very big issue nowadays of forced marriages. Remember, you can't force anyone to get married. Suggest, nominate someone for your sons or your daughters, but you can't force them. And remember, when I say force, when we look at it from the classical books from the fuqaha's time, they said forced here means like forcing your son or daughter by threatening to kill them, by having a gun next to their head and so on. This is the level of force. But to tell the truth, I think this definition of force needs to be slightly re-explained again. Because to tell the truth, a lot of the parents won't really put a gun next to their son or daughter's head. Some do, by the way, but most of them won't. But what they would do is they will do more emotional force, emotional blackmailing, which, to tell the truth, to a certain extent, becomes like similar to a physical force. And again, we at Darul Ilm, Darul Iftar, where we run a fatwa service, we deal with these cases on a daily basis. Just dealing with one at the moment, the past couple of days. An incident actually from London, by the way. Yeah, where emotionally forced. The father pretended, I've got a heart attack, things like that. Forced his daughter to get married. Sometimes parents will make up some fabricated stories that I've got cancer, you need to marry. Look, I've got cancer, I'm going to die soon. Seriously, these are real cases. They'll make up cases that I've got cancer. Doctors have told me I'm going to die in 6 months' time. So look, we've got a proposal, you need to accept this marriage, because when I die, there's not going to be no one there to conduct your nikah. Like so many people could conduct the nikah. The father's not there. Okay, fair enough. If he did pass away, brothers can conduct the nikah. Grandfathers can conduct the nikah. So they'll coin a lot of these fabricated stories, and they'll use deen a lot. They'll say, oh look, if you don't get married, Allah's going to be upset. And this is what gets me angry, because they themselves are not even practicing. But when it comes to their own benefits, then everybody uses the Sharia. And everybody uses like hadith. Everybody becomes a mufti then. Everybody uses all the hadiths and so on. They probably put me out of business and so on. Then some things they'll use all the hadiths. But they themselves, this is the thing with why it's becoming a problem. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْدِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْدِ. This is unfortunately what the Jews used to do. They used to act upon some parts of the book and some parts they used to leave. And this is unfortunately becoming the case with a lot of Muslim parents. When it comes to marriage, that they themselves don't pray. They themselves are not practicing. They don't even wear hijab. They don't even do anything. The only perhaps Islamic stuff they may do is attend Jummah once a week and Eid twice a year. That's it. Besides that, nothing else is Islamic. But then when it comes to marriage, the reality is they just want to keep their honor in the community. And that's not really honor. So they'll use all these blackmailing tactics, or you have to marry our cousin brother, you have to marry, your cousin brother, you have to marry your so-and-so, your cousin sister, X, Y, and Z, and they'll make all these substitutes. This comes under force as well. So being forced to marry, like someone who you really don't want to marry, but you've been pressurized, you've been told if you don't marry, yes, as I said, it doesn't get threatening. Some families, they do get a bit more threatening, but some will say, we're going to disown you if you don't get married, we're going to throw you out of the house. SubhanAllah, saying that to a 18-year-old girl, we're going to throw you out of the house. How heartless these parents can be. That is very heartless. And again, it goes back to the roots of the problems. Yeah, like you can't, like if you yourself aren't practicing, if you yourself have been not practicing, then don't expect to use Sharia on your son and daughter. It doesn't work, brothers and sisters. You have to build the mahol, the environment from the beginning. Then, fair enough, you could then nominate someone for your cousin brother, like your cousin sister, for your son or your daughter. That's fine. Yeah, at least obviously you can't force them at the end of the day, but you can nominate. But the thing is that a lot of the brothers and sisters who then come to me afterwards, the parents, and say, oh look, my son and daughter, they don't want to basically marry. Somebody's done zadu on them and so on. No one's done zadu. You've probably done the sihr on them yourselves by basically bringing them up in a non-Islamic way. That's the sihr you've done on them. So you didn't bring them up in an Islamic way, and then afterwards you just blame zadu and Mufti Sahib give taweez, do some ruqya and these things. Obviously that doesn't work like that. You can't nurture them, do their tarbiyah in an incorrect way, and just blame on sihr, and then ask Mufti Sahib or ask all the imams in the whole of Birmingham and London to do taweez for them. It doesn't work like that. So always remember that forced marriages are not allowed in Sharia. Arranged marriages is good. At least nominate someone for them if they want to get married, because the thing nowadays is that if we don't arrange someone or nominate someone, then the reality is that they will probably choose someone themselves. They'll choose someone via these internet dating sites. They'll be a bit more, expansive, and they'll want to choose all these random women. They'll see Polish women. Nothing wrong with them per se, but you see these cases like Muslims marrying Polish women. They're not even proper Muslims. They'll marry Christians because the parents don't choose anyone for them. So they'll think, do you know what? My parents are not choosing anyone, so let me be extravagant and let me choose whoever I want. So they'll end up marrying Polish, whether she's a Muslimah or not, only Allah knows best. They'll say she's a Muslimah, but perhaps she isn't. They'll marry Christian women. They'll marry all these women from different backgrounds. Some are, for example, Muslimas, some are even proper Muslimas, some are even atheists, some don't believe in God, because we just let our sons and daughters decide. So always keep that in mind, inshallah, that when it comes to arranged marriage, it's a good parental responsibility, but at the end of the day, we can't, inshallah, force them. Now, this then takes me on to the next point regarding how is the marriage conducted, inshallah, and some things regarding dowry, and then inshallah go on to talk about some of the hukuk. So inshallah we don't have that much time, inshallah it won't take too much longer, inshallah. So as I was saying, that marriage is something which is very, very easy in Islam. It's a very easy thing to do. It's just nowadays the zamana, the culture we live in, we've made marriage so difficult. Speak to a lot of the youngsters out there. When we speak to them marriage, I feel there's a big burden on their shoulders. I have to speak to my father. My father's like this. My mother's like. They find it difficult to approach the topic of marriage to even parents, to anyone for that matter. Actually, marriage was very, very simple during Prophet ﷺ's time. As I said, when it comes to marriage, there's the offer and acceptance. And the second thing you need, so there's two conditions. Number one is offer acceptance, which we call ijab and qabul. And again, the ijab and qabul doesn't even have to be said in Arabic as well. Even if it's said in Urdu or in Bengali or in English even, your nikah will be done. And the second condition which is needed is witnesses. So you need witnesses, inshallah, for the marriage to be done. Which in the, well, according to the Imam Abu Hanifa, it's 2 male witnesses or 1 man and 2 women. Yes, so 2 male witnesses or 1 man and 2 women. So these are the 2 conditions. As I was saying in passing earlier, you don't even have to do the nikah in front of the Imam Sahib. To say the khutbah before, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Nahmadu wa nasta'inuhu, that's just sunnah. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's not a condition. You don't even have to come to the masjid. You don't even have to hire a hall. It can be done at home. So alhamdulillah, nikah is something very, very easy. Even the sahabas, alhamdulillah, when they used to do their nikah, they were very simple, very sada. Even occasions where Prophet ﷺ didn't even know that the sahabas had got married. As a Jabir radiallahu anhu's hadith comes to mind, when Prophet ﷺ noticed that Jabir radiallahu anhu was returning back from a battle very, very quickly, very, very hasty. So Prophet ﷺ said to Jabir, where are you going? So he said, I just got married. And then Prophet ﷺ didn't know he got married. Then he asked, did he get married to a virgin or to a non-virgin? So he said he got married to a non-virgin. And again, the hadith explains the reason why. There's no need for us to get into that here. So even Rasulullah ﷺ, occasions he didn't know. Abdurrahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu got married. Prophet ﷺ noticed that he had some saffron, which is like mendi, on his clothes. Again, Prophet ﷺ asked, where did that mendi come from? So he got married. Barakallah lak wa baraka alayk, awlim walau bishaq. So many, many occasions like that where Prophet ﷺ himself did not know the Sahabas coming. This is how simple the wedding arrangements was. Nowadays, unfortunately, it's like you have to plan for weddings like 6 months, 1 year in advance. The whole booking, the color-coded kind of dresses, the walima dress has to be like this, the wedding, the engagement, on top of that, the food and so on. How many people are coming? Does that make sense? 3-course meal, everything. It's just total nonsense. And then you get horse and carriage, and then you have the limousine, and everything needs to be booked as well. Now they do helicopter pads as well. Now one marriage recently, the bride came via helicopter. And the funny thing is that she just lives literally like 20 minutes perhaps max from the hall. I don't know what was the point of damaging the environment with the helicopter, petrol and these things, diesel and so on. But anyway, that's an issue for another day, as they say. So the point I want to explain is that this is all israf. This comes under extravagance. All these things are not allowed in the Sharia. But anyway, so these are the 2 things. Now the next point to mention is something known as the mahar. So again, going back to simplicity of marriage, so you had that, and then you have mahar as well. And mahar is also very, very easy, very, very simple in the Sharia. The mahar amount is minimum 10 dirhams in the Hanafi fiqh, which approximately works out to be around 18 pounds. Now obviously the sunnah amount is something called the Mahr Fatimi. Mahr Fatimi, some of the brothers may have heard of, sisters may have heard of as well next door. So that is the Mahr Fatimi, which again approximately is around 530 pounds and so on. Again, it fluctuates based on the amount of silver. But the point I'm trying to make is that even the dowry during Prophet ﷺ time and the sunnah dowry, which is the Mahr Fatimi, is actually very less. But now, again, this is also another problem why many brothers aren't able to get married, is because they can't afford to get married. Yeah, this is because of the zaman and the culture and the time we live in, where most of the time the sisters or the sister's family at least will demand £20,000. They'll want £10,000, deposited into her account by such a time. They kind of will use the sister as a kind of like a bargaining tool, like goods in a way. So the funny thing is that people talk about, we give sisters, or we have given women rights, but when you're using your sister as a bargaining tool, or we want this, we want that, at least have some haya and some sharam and some modesty that at the end of the day it's your sister. She's not like she's not like, say, a bottle of water. She's not like a laptop. She's not like a bench. She's not like a sofa that you kind of bargain with how much you want to basically give her for. So obviously the sunnah give that amount of Mahr Fatimi, but this kind of like bargaining, £20,000 and £10,000 needs to be deposited and the rest needs to be given installments. Seriously, are you making your sister like what you do when you buy a car? This is what we do when you buy a car, don't we? When you buy a house, when you buy a building, we give this much amount first, and the rest is given in deposits and in installments. This is what people are doing with their own sisters, with their own daughters. So again, this is what happens. When we don't give honor to people, when you don't give izzat to people, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes us through various ways. So alhamdulillah, the Mahr Fatimi amount is the sunnah amount. Alhamdulillah, and this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took for his daughter Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha, hence the name Mahr Fatimi comes from when Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu gave it to Hazrat Fatima at the time of their nikah. So alhamdulillah, these are a few points inshallah to mention. Inshallah, take questions at the end inshallah. Now just the main point now. So alhamdulillah, I've covered the fiqh aspect of it. Now we're just going to mention some points regarding what we call hukuks of wives and hukuks of husband. Both, there's sisters next door as well. So hukuks of wives and husbands. So I think this is kind of more important, especially for brothers and sisters who are already married. And I said that those who are married take especially this part of the lecture as more like a refresher. I'm sure many of you are aware of the hukuks. Many of you perhaps aren't aware, some are aware. But those who are aware, take it as a refresher inshallah, as a tazkir, as a reminder inshallah. Now, when it comes to hukuks, this is like a problem, because everybody knows the hukuks, their rights. So if you speak to your husband, he'll kind of mention all his rights. My wife needs to do this for me, my wife needs to do that for me. And likewise, when we speak to sisters, they also know their rights as well, that the husband has to provide this for me and provide that for me. So everyone seems to, alhamdulillah, from a theoretical point of view, know the rights. But it's about tafaqquh and applying those rights together and then living together. That is where people and couples, husband and wife, this is where they falter. And this is what I want to really mention today. I always give this advice to our students who are here about something known as tafaqquh, understanding. I think this is the problem which we have. May yuridillah bi khayran yufaqihu fi din. Allah will give him understanding of it. And this is a problem which we have with a lot of alims and alimas as well, where they know the theory, but how they apply the theory into the practical life, very few are really unable to do that. And the same problem I've noticed when it comes to hukuks as well. So husband and wife, they know all their rights, mashallah, but how are they applying it? They don't have a clue. So this is what I want to mention, is about applying the hukuks and the rights. Now, one thing to remember when it comes to applying the hukuks is the hukuks are actually just there as a guideline, but it's not something which is mandatory. Do you keep this in mind? So do you know all the hukuks which I mentioned, that obviously there are certain mandatory ones, don't get me wrong, like nafaqah, sukna, and so clothing, expenses and accommodation. These are like mandatory ones, okay? But besides that, like say when it comes to visiting each other's parents, visiting the in-laws or in-law relationship. So what is mentioned by the fuqaha, they were mentioned many hundreds of years ago. According to the urf and according to the zamana, according to the custom in Arabia, in India, in Pakistan, in Egypt, in Sham, in Kufa, in Iraq, in Basra, where all the fuqahas were mainly from. So many of the rules which they mentioned were based according to that time. And what sometimes many brothers and sisters fail to realize is that they are applying some rules which were mentioned 500 years ago in different circumstances, and they're trying to apply it here in 2019 in London and in Birmingham. Everybody knows they're two different situations, isn't it? Like some of the things in Pakistan, Bangladesh, we can't really apply anymore here. You know, there's certain things in America which you can't even apply in the UK. Certain things in Australia you can't apply here as well. So what we need to do, brothers and sisters, is we need to have tafaqquh, understand, and be a bit more practical. And what I want to say about the rights is that the right to tell the truth is basically are those rights, those huquqs, which the husband and wife are agreeing amongst themselves. They are the rights. It's not going to be the mandatory ones you have to act upon. But besides the other rights regarding how often can a wife visit her parents? Now, yes, in the books of fiqh it says once a year or once a week if there's no one there to help the parents, or if she is able to go. But everybody knows that's not always possible or feasible. So you need to look at what the husband and wife are happy amongst themselves. Yes, if you are married to a sister who's from Bangladesh, she can't visit her parents every week. That's understandable. She can't even visit her parents once a year because it's not always feasible. But perhaps once every few years you may take your wife to Bangladesh and then you stay for a good few months. If that is what she's happy with, then that's fine. So what I want to say is that many of these problems I've noticed, and bickering and fights which happen in marriages, is when they sometimes apply rules which were mentioned many hundreds of years ago, try to apply now in this day and age, and then they see problems happening. So what I want to say to all the couples, husband and wife, is that, you know what, just be flexible. Just go according to what you are comfortable with, what you are happy. Obviously without violating each other's rights. I'm not saying now that, the wife can now live with her parents every single day. No, because that's now you're violating the right of your husband. But something which the husband doesn't mind and the wife's okay with it and they both are chilled out with it, these are the rights. These are the key rights. Obviously there's other rights important, that you treat your wife nicely. Likewise, the wife should treat her husband properly as well. Not to be rude, not to be harsh, not to be disobedient, not to be disrespectful in front of him. And likewise, you as the husband should not be disrespectful and rude to your wife as well. So these are also very, very important points as well. Which then takes me on to this point here about in-laws, because I think this is a very common issue sometimes, in-laws. And the main question is, or the main question which arises is, does the daughter-in-law, or should the daughter-in-law do khidmat or look after the should the husband's wife look after the husband's parents? In other words, should the wife look after, make food, do khidmat, the household chores, hoovering, cleaning for the husband's parents, yes or no? This is like the common question which a lot of the brothers and sisters ask as well. Now again, some people answer and say no, they don't have to, but that's not really true actually. When you look through the hadith, you will actually find that Sahabas actually did get married with the intention to look after in-laws. The very famous example I quoted a few days back in the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari and Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Do you know the companion mentioned recently, just a few minutes ago, Jabir radiallahu anhu? So there was a reason why he got married to a non-virgin, because Prophet asked him, you got married, who did you get married to? Was he a virgin or was he a non-virgin? So he said, I got married to a non-virgin. So Prophet ﷺ said, why? So he said, O Prophet of Allah, my father just passed away. His father got martyred in the Battle of Uhud. And he left behind 9 daughters. So in other words, Jabir radiallahu anhu had 9 sisters. And he said that the reason why I got married to a non-virgin is so that she can then look after my 9 sisters. This is a classic example of getting married just for the sake of what? Looking after in-laws. Like obviously, your sisters will be the sister-in-law of your wife, isn't it? So this is a classic example of Jabir radiallahu anhu getting married just for the reason of he wanted her to look after his sisters. Why? Because the father had passed away. So this is one example. And there are many other examples like that of Sahabas getting married for other reasons as well. So this notion that for a sister, when she gets married, she doesn't have to do khidmat of her father-in-law, her mother-in-law. What we can say is that, look, qada'an, it's not wajib. Qada'an meaning like, you can't go to a mufti or an imam sahib and complain about this and say, oh, my daughter-in-law isn't cooking the food at home. You can't complain. Qada'an. And the mufti can't do anything about it. The qadi sahib can't do anything about it. But diyanatan, which is the relationship between herself and Allah, then yes, it is necessary and it's wajib that she looks after to the best of her ability. Obviously, all within reasonableness. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you treat her like a slave and that she has to wake up at this time and you shout at her and then you want a luxury life. No. But within reason, within her ability, within her tawfiq, within her istita'ah, if she was to do the khidmat of the father-in-law, of the mother-in-law, in particular if they are old and they're unable to cook and she does some of the household chores, then that is something which is considered to be correct, is considered to be in line and according to the rules and the guidelines of the Sharia when it comes to marriage, and it's not considered to be against the marriage rules which I have mentioned. Because a lot of people think, oh, this is all backward thinking for the wife to do all the chores of the household. No, there's many hadiths say that Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to actually wet the miswak of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She used to chew the miswak of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She used to give it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, don't get me wrong, as I said, it has to be all within reason. I'm not saying now that the husband has to now take advantage and treat his wife like a slave girl, but he should also come and do his bit of the household, because I've mentioned the hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whilst he would be at home, he would be like an ordinary person. Subhanallah, he used to mend his own shoe, he used to stitch his own clothes. He was like an ordinary person. So inshallah, we should also be like that as well. But if she was to do some khidmat of the house and other things, as the story of Hazrat Zubair radiallahu ta'ala, he was married to Hazrat Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, who was Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala, whose daughter. So it's mentioned that Hazrat Asma, she used to do not only household chores, she used to even do outside chores as well. So she used to go out with buckets to collect water from the well and then bring it back. She used to grind the grains, the barley and the wheat with her own hands, which caused pain in her hands. Everyone knows the story of Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha, which then led to Prophet ﷺ to reveal the tasbih Fatimi. You know what we read after namaz? 33 times Subhanallah, 33 times Alhamdulillah, 34 times Allahu Akbar. That came about when Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha, because she used to do so much of the household chores, the grinding and these things, that she came to Prophet, she complained, oh, my hands are hurting. Can you give me a slave to help me with the household chores? But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, I'm not going to give you a slave. I'll tell you something more better than that. Where if you were to read it after every namaz and before you go to sleep, all the pain you are facing will go away. And then Prophet ﷺ then taught Hazrat Fatima radiallahu anha Tasbih Fatimi. So inshallah, we could derive that actually there's nothing wrong with that. But also at the same time, what I want to say to both parties here, to the mother-in-law, that don't take your daughter-in-law, your son's wife, as a slave girl. And also at the same time, advice to the daughter-in-law that also respect and love your mother-in-law, because the main person between the two is the husband. And the same way as a daughter-in-law, as a wife, you want to make your husband happy. So if your husband is going to be happy because you are making his mother happy, then we should try to do that khidmat as possible. And likewise, as I said, advice for the mother-in-law is that we want to make easy for our daughter-in-law, her situation at home. Why? Because if she's happy, the son is happy. So inshallah, it's about making other people happy. This is why I always talk about the importance of fiqh, thinking about others. So it's important that we shouldn't just look after our own selves, but it's important that we also look after others as well. And I'll finish off with a hadith, a very famous hadith, regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha. Very long hadith. I mentioned it many times before. It's of Sahih al-Bukhari, where Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha, what happened was that she was told by her the other women folk, the other wives of Prophet ﷺ, to go and complain about Sayyidah Aisha to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what happened was that Sayyidah Fatima came, she complained about Hazrat Aisha. Prophet ﷺ didn't say anything. Then right at the end, Prophet ﷺ said to Sayyidah Fatima that do you want to make me happy? So Sayyidah Fatima said yes. Then Rasulullah ﷺ said, if you want to make me happy, then love Hazrat Aisha. Now look at this relationship. Sayyidah Fatima was the daughter, and Hazrat Aisha was the kind of like the wife. In other words, what the hadith was saying is, make me happy by loving Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha. This is what Prophet ﷺ is trying to say, is that don't complain about Hazrat Aisha. You make me happy by making Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha happy. So when you make her happy, when you don't say anything bad about her, when you don't complain about her, I get happy by this. So from this we can understand, and this is, as I said, the nasiha to both sides, is to the mother-in-law, treat your daughter-in-law nicely. Don't treat them as slave girls. Don't be harsh to them. Don't say, oh, go and make me some food. Go and cook this, go and cook that. Be nice and gentle to them. Because inshallah, when they are happy, your son, i.e. her husband, will be happy. And likewise, advice to any wives here, that try to make your mother-in-law happy as well. Because when you make her happy, your husband will be happy. And that's why it's mentioned in the hadith of Tirmidhi, that when a woman just prays, fasts, just does her normal things, obeys Allah, and makes her husband happy, she will enter Jannah from whichever door she wants. She will enter Jannah from whichever door. So, and that is the maqsad at the end of the day. We just want to, the reality is, we've come to this world, mustaqarrun wa mata'un ilahi. Yeah, we're just going to be in this world for a few years, yeah? 50 years, 60 years. Our eventual goal is Allah and in the hereafter. That's our eventual goal. This world isn't our maqsad. This world isn't our aim. This world isn't our game. Our maqsad here is that we have to live together for 20 years, 30 years. Most marriages will last for 20 years, 30 years. Then one, either the husband or the wife, will then pass away. Some will pass away before, some may pass away later. So that is the reality of marriages. It will probably last for 30 years, 35 years, 40 years maximum. So it's just during those years, those temporary moments we have, we should just try to make everyone happy. Why do you want to lead a life for where your wife is upset, your husband is upset, and you could easily alleviate by just doing a few things, just making your wife happy, buying her some presents here and there. Likewise, wife could attain the happiness of their husband by buying him some presents. Husband could make the wife happy by, say for example, doing a bit of the household chores. Husband could make the wife happy if, say for example, if she's got the kids always, then on the weekend taking the kids out to the park, and then the wife could relax at home for a few hours. Little things like that just make each other happy. Likewise, the wife could also make the husband happy as well by doing a few of the, taking off his burden and taking off his stress and going to family relationship, as I said before. Wife could make the husband happy by just being nice to the mother-in-law, making some food, just doing some khidmat, doing a bit of the household chores. And likewise, husband could make his wife happy by here and there visiting his mother-in-law, i.e. his wife's mother, buying us some gifts, buying us some presents and so on. Inshallah, in that way, through happiness, we should always remember that the key thing in this world is, yes, libadin adu, there may be occasion where there may be some enmity with people, but we should try our best to kind of make each other happy. And inshallah, we pass away, we leave this world with our husbands happy with us, with our wives happy with us, and inshallah, in that way we attain Jannah paradise. Because at the end of the day, that's our maqsad. We want to go to Jannah. Yeah? We don't want to we don't want to meet Allah on the Day of Judgment, and then our wife is complaining about us that we didn't fulfill her hukuk, we didn't fulfill her rights. Or our husbands are complaining about their wives that, she didn't fulfill the rights. Because what will happen is that hadith of Sahih Muslim, that Prophet ﷺ said, who is a bankrupt person? So bankrupt is that person, the Sahabas thought, that person who had money but he lost it. Prophet ﷺ said, no, bankrupt is that person who had so many a'mals in this world, but in the hereafter, because he did not fulfill so-and-so's rights, he violated everybody's rights, then what happened was, everyone takes away his good deed and he ends up with nothing and he ends up in hell. He is a bankrupt person. So this is very, very important even for husbands, wives as well, that sometimes we think, we're praying salah and that is much better. Obviously, praying salah is good, but just say nafal. We're going to engage in nafal. Nafal is good, but sometimes you understand that if you're not fulfilling your wife's rights, which is farz, the nafal you're praying isn't good. That's zulm. Yeah, and shaitan plays these games. It kind of like make you do nafal, and you think, mashallah, I'm doing so much good. But then if you're not fulfilling the farz of your wife, that nafal you're doing isn't good, is it? Then on the Day of Judgment, the reward you got for your nafal will be taken away, because your wife will then make a case against you on the Day of Judgment, because you didn't fulfill her rights. So inshallah, with as they say, with love, piyar, muhabbat, say we should try to live together. And inshallah, as I said at the beginning, that will then all will bode well for our children. Because when our children grow up in a nice, happy environment, when they see their husband and wife, the father and mother always happy, then inshallah you will see automatically what will happen is that they will be happy as well. Their upbringing will be good. They'll do good in school. So when they go to school, they're not going to be depressed. They're going to do well in their school, in their maths, their English, their science, everything. Then afterwards you see them, inshallah, even if they go to alim class or madrasa, they'll do good. Then there'll be alims, alimas, or they go to school and then they'll be doctors. It'll be, inshallah, bode well. And this is, brothers and sisters, how we change society. Yeah, changing society is done through actions and not through words. Yes, words are there because we need to give encouragement, we need to tell people, but just standing up and saying, yes, we need to change society, society's not going to change. Society will only change through actions and amal. You see why Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha said that, carry on, do actions. This is how people change. And do these actions continuously. So inshallah we should all make an effort that we're now going to make an effort in our marriage. Remember, and always remember that when we hear stories of people, I always said this before as well to the classes, that when we hear stories of people, remember this is a ibra for us. Ibra means this is a warning for us. With Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam, there's one story which perhaps I shouldn't mention too much, because it is an Israeli narration. It's a narration from the Bible about the story of Wali and Na'jatu, the ayat Na'jatu Wahida, one ram he had. So obviously there's one story that Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam, he had 99 wives, but he wanted to get married to somebody else's wife. So he wanted 100 wives. So then the two angels came and they coined a story, and they said to him that somebody has 99 rams and he wants to forcefully take another person's ram. So he becomes 100. Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam said, that's zulm, because he's already got 99 rams. Why does he want to take somebody else's ram? So the Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam said to the angels, when these angels came in the form of a person, that this is zulm. Then the angels went away and said, this is your parable. So Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam understood that, I already have 99 wives, I want to take somebody else's wife so that I could have 100. That was zulm from my behalf. And then وَخَرَّ رَاكِيًا وَأَنَابَ, Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam then fell into ruku and sajda, and he prostrated for his shortcomings. But the point I want to make here is that, in life, we will hear these stories every now and then. When we hear these stories, the idea of these stories is for us to take a lesson that, this could happen to us. So when we hear a story that a husband has left his wife, or like speaking to brothers, a wife has left the husband, we shouldn't turn around and say, oh, what a loser. What a loser. No. We should take ibrat. Ibrat meaning take, if we don't do and fulfill our rights, our wife could one day get up and say, I'm going to take the kids, I'm going, I'm leaving. So the point I'm trying to make is that we should always these stories we hear, don't laugh at these stories of breakup of relationships or marriages and say, oh, what a loser, what a waste of time, his wife left him. No, these are stories for us. That's why the whole Quran is ibrat. Why do we have so many stories in the Quran of Ad and Samud and Qawm Lut and Qawm Nuh and Fir'aun? So that it's a lesson for us. It's an ibrat for us. So likewise, when we hear these stories of marriage breaking up, I know within our own Bengali, Pakistani community, we laugh at these people, don't we? We say, oh, look at him. No, it's not a laughing matter. This is for us to take lessons. That, if we behave like the way that husband behaved, which led to the wife packing her bags and leaving, that will happen to our wives and our women. So always be careful, because these stories, you don't hear all these stories, but then all of a sudden you hear a story. Why all of a sudden you heard a story? Because Allah wanted you to hear that story, so then you then become aware of this situation. So inshallah, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, alhamdulillah, whatever I explained over the past 1.5 hours, I hope everybody understood it. Inshallah, the idea wasn't a full-blown detailed course, because if it was a full-blown course, Fiqh of marriage will take 6, 7, 8 hours, we'll be here until Isha. The idea was just to give in a snippet way, in a nice way, main points, inshallah, just as a tazkir, as a reminder for everyone that inshallah we are able to then act upon. And as I said, time is short. Inshallah, we should always make an effort in our marriage with the intention that we kind of our children will be nurtured in the right way, and more importantly, we are able to inshallah change the community which is out there, which, as I explained at the beginning of the talk, there's a lot of sufferings, a lot of masa'ibs. Inshallah, may Allah give us all tawfiq to act upon what has been said. Inshallah, we'll finish by saying Jazakallah khair to Mawlana Tazul Islam Sahib and to the committee of the masjid for allowing us to, inshallah, allowing me to say a few words, inshallah. I'll finish off by saying some things which Mawlana Tazul Islam said about our madrasa, our institution, which Hafiz website will give some leaflets out at the end, inshallah, if anyone's interested. So as I was saying that, whatever I said today, inshallah, just 1 or 2 minutes, inshallah, whatever I said today, it's all based on ilm at the end of the day, isn't it, brothers and sisters? It's lack of knowledge. All the problems which is happening outside is lack of ilm. Because when there's no ilm, فَأَفْتَوْا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ فَضَلُّوا وَضَلُّوا. People, anyone now on YouTube, Facebook are giving fatwas they themselves are deviated and they make others deviated. So we could all put a change to this by changing the society. But the only way we could change society if we ourselves are equipped with ilm and knowledge. So alhamdulillah, what I want to say to all the brothers and sisters who are here is that we live in a time where there's no more excuses for not learning ilm anymore. Not learning ilm. We can't say anymore that, oh, Mufti Sahib, there's no madrasas. You know, we live in London, there's madrasa here, there's Mona Sahib's masjid, you know, nearby as well. They do supplementary classes as well. And even if there are people here who can't go to the local masjid because of time restrictions, work hours, alhamdulillah, we can now learn ilm online as well. Alhamdulillah, our institution, we do on-site classes, we do online classes as well. Alhamdulillah, our online classes, we have the same standard which we have for on-site, for online as well. And we have so many things. Okay, fair enough, you may not be able to commit to an alim course. There's Arabic you can learn. There's other things you can learn about essentials, fiqh, masla, masail, so many other things. Every month, I'm sure Mona Tosir Islam will say, you know, he gets inundated with messages from myself of all the events and all the courses which we offer. Alhamdulillah, so this is what we do on a regular basis. And tell the truth, just to add on further, there's no more excuses anymore, because we even in our madrasa have a student who's learning. He's in the second year of Quranic class and he's partially blind. He's blind. Those who are blind, you know, they don't even have to go for salah in jama'ah. The Itban bin Malik radiallahu anhu story. Those who are blind, they don't even have to go out for fights and wars. So he didn't have to become an alim, but out of his own will and shauq, he's blind, but he does the alim course. Partially blind, not completely, he's partially. And he's doing the alim course. So if someone's partially blind and is able to learn about his deen, brothers and sisters, you know, what excuses do we have? Seriously, what excuse do we have? So inshallah, we should always try to make the effort to learn about our deen, because the answers to all the problems out there, brothers and sisters, is on the ilm. If we learn ilm, we got the solution to everything. If we don't learn ilm, we'll have non-Islamic solutions to everything, which will always not be correct, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for Mona Sahib and everybody else for giving me the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The brother had a question. Sorry, I had a question.
Inshallah, let us move forward, and if you have any question, inshallah, let me quickly, briefly say a few things, and then after, inshallah, you'll be able to ask the question. First of all, we are very grateful. The Sheikh has came all the way from Birmingham to here, and he has delivered very beautiful, basically the bayan, I would say bayan, the short lectures. I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all the effort he has put in, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him reward in this dunya and as well as in the hereafter, inshallah. And finally, I just wanted to remind you, as I said earlier on, inshallah, regarding the institutions that Mufti Sahib is running. It's called Darul Ilm Birmingham. Inshallah, the leaflets are available here, and also I will request Mufti Sahib to leave little more leaflets, inshallah, on the entrance. So all the brothers and the sisters who will come afterwards, inshallah, they will be able to benefit from the leaflets. And at the same time, if anyone has any question regarding his institution, inshallah, I will humbly request to feel free, and inshallah get in touch with me, and I will be able to inshallah provide you every question, everything that you would like to know. And earlier on, as you know, today there are few programs is going on at the same time at the same place. I would say like today was the most attractive day, which I didn't know before. One of the things that Sheikh Salim Daurat Sahib Hafizahullah is coming down, I think he's in Leicester right now, he's delivering his bayan. The other thing is also basically in the Blackburn, there is a markaz is going on. And also many brothers and the sisters, either they are going for a Hajj, perhaps basically they've gone to a wedding, and so many things is going on. So therefore many brothers, they have apologized, and then the sisters, they have apologized, they could not be able to attend. But inshallah, since I thought maybe a few brothers, they requested me to, if I could cancel, I said no, let's Mufti Sahib to come and see us where we are. And at least inshallah, if you're able to come and see us, then later on we can request him again to come and deliver the beautiful basically this page or the short courses. So therefore, we are very grateful that Mufti Sahib came here all the way, and we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically grant him the ajr and the reward. And as I have said earlier on, Mufti Sahib has graduated not only, alhamdulillah, he has completed Hifz, Alim and Mufti and so many other courses. Beyond that, he also completed LLB, basically the degree. And after that, he could have done so many other things. Unfortunately, he did not give the priority to the dunya. He has given the priority of the akhirah. And as a result, he has been working, and all the time he is constantly basically trying what he can do to bring the people from Prasada into a deen. So we make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all the effort he has put in behind, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to act upon what has been said. And also our humble request to the brothers and the sisters, inshallah, the food has been prepared for you, so please do not attempt to leave without having a food. And inshallah the food will be served straight away, inshallah, after a few minutes time. So if sisters have any question, inshallah, you can return on the paper and give it to us. And also the brothers, similarly, if you have any question to ask, inshallah, you can present your question to Mufti Sahib. Inshallah, you will be able to answer you. Jazakumullah khairan. Okay, inshallah. I think someone is passed away.
My question was on Hakmer, which you were saying that there was minimum of about £18, and then also some people asking for more. But isn't there something about there should be sufficient Hakmer? Should the girl be divorced, then until she gets married again, there should be enough money for her to live on? So just elaborate on that, please.
Just for the sisters next door, the question which the brother was asking is that should the mahar amount be a stipulated number or a stipulated amount that in the event of a divorce she's then able to kind of look after herself? There's two things here. One is dowry. Now dowry is that which is given at the very beginning. So for that it should be according to the sunnah amount, which is the mahar part of it. We shouldn't set the dowry at an amount where we take into consideration in the event if there was a divorce, then should be able to look after herself or children, because firstly in the event when that happens, that's like gambling, that's now become chancing. So goya ke ek tarah ki gambling ho gaya, this becomes gambling. You're putting money on stake on an event which is may happen, may not happen. So because of that reason, we can't put a figure for dowry based on something which may happen, may not happen. What the alternative to Sharia has is something what is known in Arabic as muta. Okay, not the Shia muta, this is another muta. So basically, muta basically means that, do you know when every divorcee, it's mustahab that the husband gives a muta. Muta basically means that you give some clothes. That's what is mentioned in the books of Fiqh, that you give some clothes and these things. But in reality, what it means is that you give some amount to the wife, or to your ex-wife now, after divorce, so that she's able to look after, or she's able to get herself on her feet. Obviously, you can't give her too much, but especially, you know, when a divorce happens all of a sudden, the first year at least, it's a bit difficult financially, because she has to then look after herself, household bills, you know, she may not be able to get into work straight away, children. Then there's an amount called a muta amount, which is mustahab, again not necessary, but mustahab to give. Some occasions it's wajib to give, where basically you take into consideration amount where the wife can use to then get herself back onto her 2 feet. So that is the alternative Sharia has, but not at the beginning for the dowry.
One question, like, our community, someone, husband died, and like, the children, young children, or family member, they do not allow this lady to do another marriage. It's our culture. Is it true, or is it, can you clarify if the lady this kind of situation? Because of our community, if the lady want to do marriage, but community is like they say, oh, you cannot marry your children, this and that. Can you do some clarification of this kind of situation, what the lady can do?
Yeah, what you said is exactly true. The Sharia allows a woman, when her husband passes away, to kind of like marry after iddat finishes, irrespective whether she has children or not. That's what the Sharia allows. But it's a community which is saying no. So it's one of those things that we need to educate our community that they shouldn't do this, and they should allow, if the sister whose husband has passed away, especially if the sister is young. Okay, I can understand if the sister is old, she's in her 50s, 60s, but sometimes husband passes away, road accident, gets cancer, she's young. So, even though she's got kids, we should allow her to get married. If you look at the story of Hazrat Ja'far radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he was martyred in the Battle of Muta, his wife, whose name was Asma bint Umays, after iddat, she got married to Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And there's many examples like that of sahabiyats where the husbands were martyred or passed away, and then the wives, after the iddat, then married somebody else afterwards. Fatima bint Qais story comes to mind, and other stories as well. Actually, Fatima bint Qais was a divorce one, but there's another hadith as well, similar like that in Bukhari, where husband passed away. Abu Sanabil one, I think he was, doesn't he? It's in Bukhari as well. So when he passed away, then her wife got married like straight away as well. So inshallah, after she gave birth to a child. So inshallah, we should educate people in that situation, inshallah. It's a cultural thing. You can't do this and so on. Obviously, especially if she's young, because we live in a time of fiqh, and then especially with Facebook, they'll start contacting men. They probably do dating secretly. So she's probably, maybe, I'm not saying she is, but she may be doing zina on the side, and then just because of izzat. It goes back to that point I mentioned at the beginning, that we become bare ghayrat now, that we allow our daughters, our sons to do zina, but we won't get them married. That's the reality now, isn't it? Because of culture, caste. This is what's happened now.
You mentioned wali at the time of marriage, but you didn't mention the witnesses. So what is the role of the witnesses at the time of marriage? Plus, later on in life, if there is an argument between the couple, usually the way to resolve it is you get the members of the family, the boys, members of the girl's family, they sit down and discuss to make matters better again. So what does the role of witnesses apply at the time of marriage and at the time of argument, should that happen?
Okay. The role of a witness is that they just bear the testimony. So that's what they do. So they don't really get involved in anything. They're just there just to witness, like they were hazir for that particular nikah. That's what it is. The only time they would be questioned is if afterwards the husband or the wife disagree and say, oh, I didn't get married to you. Then we'll call the witnesses and say, look, these are the two witnesses. They saw you accepting the marriage and proposing for the marriage. So that's what the witnesses do. If in the later on, if there's a dispute between the husband or wife, and then فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا, you get arbitrators from both parties. The witnesses aren't involved for that. They don't come because they got nothing to do. They just bear the testimony. They're just like hazir, that yes, we were present when the nikah happened. And the only time they would get involved is, as I said, if a wife say later on say, oh, I didn't marry him, or I didn't give any permission. So then the two witnesses will be, obviously normally what will happen in our culture is the wife's permission is done separately. So they bring the witness there. So if the wife afterwards said, no, I didn't give permission to marry, then the two witnesses will be called and say, look, they were there, they witnessed to you saying it. Only then that's when the witnesses are involved.
Now, there was also a mention, obviously, when the parents of the girl, especially if they are not happy about the marriage, then the girl sort of leaves home and gets married. Then how are the witnesses chosen at that point?
Yeah, because normally for witnesses, it doesn't have to be anyone from the family side. It could be anyone. So that's why from the public. So that's why they normally will come to the masjid, imam, two local musallis. They could be the witnesses. So it doesn't have to be necessarily family. Shall we do dua? What happens? Bismillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen, sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina adhaban nar. Rabbana faghfir lana dhunubana wa kaffir anna sayyi'atina wa tawaffana ma'al abrar. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. Ya Allah, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Ya Ghafur Rahim. O Allah, all the sins which we have committed, minor sins, major sins, O Allah, forgive all our sins. O Allah, we are in the blessed month of Zulqa'dah. Zulhijjah is about to start soon. O Allah, these are blessed months. O Allah, any tawbah which we have done, any kind of good deeds which we have done, any salah, any charity, anything which we are doing, O Allah, accept these good deeds. O Allah, the brothers who have organized today's event, including Taz Musab, and also the committee members, O Allah, reward them abundantly for this event. O Allah, those people who will have benefited from this event, inshallah, give them the tawfiq, they act upon what has been said. O Allah, the brother whose one of his family members have passed away, O Allah, shower the mercy and rahmah upon the deceased. O Allah, give sabr and patience to the deceased family. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Food ready, sir.
The food, brother, in the kitchen.
Make your way to the kitchen. The foods are ready.
I've gone down to